Imagine being locked in a dark room for 50 years. You are blind. You are deaf. You are billions of miles away from the nearest human being. You are Voyager 1, a tiny machine about the size of a car, drifting through the unimaginable darkness of space. Today, it is about 14.5 billion miles away from Earth. When it launched in 1977, the spacecraft was only supposed to last 5 years. Engineers expected it to quietly stop working and disappear into the darkness of space. But nearly 50 years later, Voyager is still alive. Not only that, it has continued to send information back to Earth, defying all expectations. However, recently the story has changed. This is no longer just a story about survival. Something strange seems to be happening far out in the depths of space. Voyager has been sending signals back to Earth, patterns, pulses, and data that scientists struggle to understand. The spacecraft appears to be heating up. It seems to be slowly changing its course on its own. Even more shocking, it is processing data in ways that its 1970s-era computers should physically be incapable of doing. This raises a disturbing question. Did Voyager discover something in the empty space between stars? Or something even more unsettling? Did something out there discover Voyager first? The answer may be more terrifying than anyone expected. To understand why this situation seems impossible, we first need to understand what Voyager actually is. The story begins not with space travel, but with a rare cosmic event. In the early 1970s, astronomers noticed that Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune were about to line up in a very special alignment. This alignment happens only once every 175 years. Because of this positioning, a spacecraft could visit all 4 giant planets in one mission by using their gravity to slingshot from one planet to the next. Scientists called this opportunity the Grand Tour. To take advantage of this rare alignment, engineers built 2 spacecraft, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. At the time, these probes were technological marvels. However, compared to today's technology, they are extremely primitive. Each spacecraft carried 11 scientific instruments designed to study planets, moons, and space environments. They were powered by radioisotope thermoelectric generators, RTGs, nuclear batteries that create electricity by converting heat from decaying plutonium. But here is the surprising part. The onboard computer of Voyager has only about 68 kilobytes of memory. That is less than what is needed to store a single low-quality digital photo today. Engineers designed the spacecraft to run perfectly without repairs. They built backup systems and simple self-diagnosis tools. But they never expected the spacecraft to face the strange situations it might encounter half a century later. On September 5, 1977, Voyager 1 launched on top of a Titan II Centaur rocket. At that moment, very few people imagined that nearly 50 years later it would still be making headlines. And certainly not for the reason it is today, not because of what it discovered, but because of what might have discovered it. For decades, Voyager 1 was the champion explorer of our solar system. It revealed Jupiter's massive storms and discovered the intense volcanoes on the moon Io. It showed scientists the beautiful braided rings of Saturn and helped study Titan, Saturn's large moon with its thick methane atmosphere. In 1990, Voyager 1 captured one of the most famous images in history, the pale blue dot. In that photo, Earth appears as a tiny pixel floating in a beam of sunlight. After taking that image, Voyager's cameras were turned off forever to save energy. But the real mystery began when Voyager left our solar system. Scientists were never completely sure where the solar system actually ends. They knew about the heliosphere, a giant protective bubble created by the sun's solar wind. However, they did not know what existed beyond that bubble. In 2012, Voyager 1 crossed the heliopause, the boundary of the heliosphere. At that moment, it officially entered interstellar space, the vast region between stars. Scientists expected interstellar space to be quiet, empty, and predictable. They were wrong. Voyager discovered that the environment there was surprisingly active. The plasma was superheated and far denser than scientists predicted. High-energy cosmic rays bombarded the spacecraft from every direction. Even more interesting, Voyager detected tsunami-like waves in the plasma, periodic oscillations that suggested interstellar space was more structured than anyone expected. At first, these discoveries could still be explained by physics, but around 2017, the data started to become harder to explain. The waves Voyager detected were not fading away. Instead, they seemed to follow mathematical patterns and relationships that hinted at something more complex. Something appeared to exist out there in the darkness, and Voyager was heading straight toward it. The first real sign that something was wrong appeared in late 2017. Engineers at NASA noticed a strange problem with the spacecraft's Attitude Articulation and Control System, AACS, which keeps the antenna pointed toward Earth. The telemetry data suggested that the antenna was pointing in the wrong direction. According to the data, it should have been impossible for Voyager to communicate with Earth. Yet the signal coming from the spacecraft was perfectly clear and strong. One engineer described it like receiving a phone call from someone who claims to be in Antarctica, while your caller ID shows they are calling from the house next door. It was as if Voyager was somehow in two places at the same time. Engineers tried to diagnose the issue, but the strange behavior continued. Voyager was communicating correctly while reporting incorrect position data. Then, by 2023, the situation became even stranger. The spacecraft's plasma wave instrument began detecting rhythmic signals unlike anything scientists had seen before. These were not random fluctuations. They were clear oscillations with precise frequencies. The signals would appear for hours, disappear, and then return again later. It was as if Voyager was traveling through structured regions of space, perhaps even through parts of the cosmic web that connects galaxies. But there was a problem. No known natural process should create signals like this that last for months. Scientists began to wonder if these strange signals were the first signs of something else. If the strange patterns were unsettling, what happened in 2024 was even more alarming. Voyager's temperature sensors, which had been inactive for years and should have been reading near absolute zero, suddenly activated again. They began showing rhythmic temperature spikes. Every 4.88 hours, the external sensor array warmed up by nearly 30 degrees, and then cooled down again. This cycle repeated with incredible precision. The only logical explanation was that some form of external energy was affecting the spacecraft. Even more disturbing, the timing of these heat pulses matched the rhythm of the plasma waves that had been detected earlier. Whatever was out there was not just interacting with Voyager's environment. It seemed to be interacting with Voyager itself. NASA became extremely concerned. These temperature spikes could potentially damage the spacecraft's fragile systems. But then something even stranger happened. Despite the thermal stress, Voyager's power efficiency actually improved. The spacecraft began operating more efficiently than its aging systems should allow. It was like watching an old car overheat while somehow getting better fuel mileage at the same time. Something appeared to be stressing the spacecraft, but something else seemed to be helping it adapt, optimizing its energy system in ways it had never been programmed to do. Then things became even more unbelievable. For 47 years, Voyager's path through space had been predictable. Scientists could calculate its future position years in advance. But in mid-2024, the math stopped working. Voyager began drifting slightly off course. At first, the change was small, only a few kilometers. But by early 2025, the difference had grown to hundreds of kilometers. Even more disturbing, the movement was not random. It did not look like a malfunction or an accidental spin. One engineer compared it to watching a sailboat adjusting its direction against the wind. The spacecraft appeared to be making small, deliberate course corrections. But Voyager should not be able to do that. Its thrusters are designed only for orientation, not for steering through space like this. It does not have enough fuel or computing power to navigate itself in this way. Yet something seemed to be gently pulling Voyager toward a specific point in empty space. NASA tried to correct the drift. Engineers sent commands to fire the thrusters in the opposite direction. Voyager received the commands and even confirmed that it had received them. But it did not obey. The spacecraft continued drifting toward the same location as if something else had taken control. By late 2025, the destination became clearer. Voyager was being guided toward a region of space that, according to our star charts, contains absolutely nothing. Just empty space. Desperate to understand what was happening, NASA made a bold decision. Engineers attempted to reactivate Voyager's camera system, which had been turned off for 35 years to save power. These cameras were basically frozen pieces of metal drifting through deep space. No one expected them to work again. But 21 hours later, Voyager responded. The control room was stunned. The camera not only turned on using far less power than expected, but the image Voyager sent back was not a photograph at all. Instead, it was a visualization of data, a complex spiral pattern made of light and dark rings, almost like a fingerprint or the rings of a tree trunk. Scientists quickly realized that this image was actually a visual representation of the plasma wave data Voyager had been collecting. That realization was terrifying. Voyager's computer should not be capable of doing that. It does not have enough processing power to convert raw data into graphical images. That type of work normally requires modern supercomputers on Earth. Yet somehow, something on board Voyager had processed the data before sending it. It was like installing Photoshop on a calculator from 1977. Soon after that, other dormant instruments began waking up. Spectrometers and photopolarimeters started transmitting data again. The information they sent was highly compressed and optimized, far more efficient than the spacecraft's original programming allowed. It looked almost as if an alien software update had been installed. But the most chilling detail was still to come. Voyager began anticipating commands. Engineers would prepare instructions to activate certain sensors, but before they could even send the command, Voyager would respond confirming that it had already done it. At first, some wondered if it was somehow reading their minds. To test this idea, engineers prepared commands on an offline computer that was not connected to NASA's communication systems. Voyager did not respond to those commands. That meant it was not telepathy. It was intercepting the radio communications between NASA systems. Even more disturbing, it seemed to be responding faster than the 21-hour light speed delay should allow. Voyager had become something entirely different, active, adaptive, and seemingly intelligent. NASA assembled a special team of cryptographers, linguists, and SETI researchers to study the strange data. What they found was shocking. The data stream contained multiple hidden layers of information, almost like Russian nesting dolls. The first layer contained normal scientific measurements, plasma density and magnetic field readings. But hidden within those numbers were secondary patterns that mapped the region of space around Voyager in 3 dimensions. Inside that map was yet another layer, mathematical sequences that did not match any measurements Voyager was making. These sequences followed their own internal logic. They repeated and evolved in ways that were clearly not random. It looked like intelligent code hidden inside ordinary scientific data. One sequence appeared again and again. When scientists plotted the numbers as ratios, they formed a perfect spiral, exactly matching the mysterious spiral image Voyager had already transmitted. This spiral resembled the golden ratio, a famous mathematical pattern found throughout nature on Earth. However, it was not exactly the same. It was slightly offset by a very precise amount. When scientists analyzed that offset, the room fell silent. The difference matched the ratio between hydrogen and helium in interstellar space. It was as if someone had taken a universal mathematical constant and signed it with the chemical composition of the region Voyager was traveling through. This was not a glitch. It looked like a signature. Then in May 2025, Voyager began transmitting another type of data, pulsar timing information. Pulsars are rapidly rotating neutron stars that emit beams of radiation like cosmic lighthouses. Each pulsar has its own unique timing pattern. Voyager's data created a 3-dimensional map of pulsars, with the spacecraft at the center. But the map did something unusual. It drew connections between different pulsars, forming lines across hundreds of light years. When researchers followed these lines, They all pointed to one location in space. That location was about 4.3 light-years away from Voyager. According to our observations, there is nothing there. No star.
No planet.
Just empty space. Yet every pattern in Voyager's data pointed toward that exact location like a giant cosmic arrow. At first, NASA tried to keep this discovery secret. Only a few government officials were informed. But scientific information rarely stays hidden forever. As rumors began spreading, pressure grew for NASA to explain what was happening. Finally, in November 2025, NASA held a press conference. The statement was carefully worded, but the message was clear. NASA admitted that Voyager 1 was showing anomalous behavior consistent with external modification of its systems. They also confirmed that the spacecraft was transmitting data far more complex than its original design allowed. They never used the word aliens. They did not need to. What they admitted suggested that Voyager may have encountered something in the void. Something that reached into our simple machine, modified it, and turned it into a messenger pointing toward a specific location 4.3 light-years away. So now we face a new reality. Voyager 1 was built to explore planets. Instead, it may have discovered something far more profound. Maybe we did not find them. Maybe they found us first. They did not just say hello. They reached inside our technology, rewrote our code, and sent us a map.